Imagine waking up one day as king of the Seven Kingdoms, sitting on the Iron Throne your family went to war to secure, only to realize that the person who pushed you into this nightmare doesn't actually believe you should be there. That is Aegon II's entire existence in one painful sentence. His mother Alicent spent years maneuvering, scheming, and preparing for his coronation. And then the moment he actually became king, she looked at him with the kind of disappointment usually reserved for burnt toast and bad investments. Before we unpack this mother-son relationship that makes therapy look like a luxury vacation, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because we are diving deep into the family dysfunction that launched 1,000 dragons. Let us start with the fundamental betrayal that defines Aegon's entire relationship with Alicent, and it is so obvious that everyone misses it. Alicent didn't put Aegon on the throne because she believed in him. She put him there because Otto Hightower convinced her that Rhaenyra would kill her children to secure her own claim, and Aegon was the only option standing between her babies and political assassination. That is not faith in your son's abilities. That is using your son as a human shield with a crown. Aegon wasn't chosen because he was the best candidate for ruling the Seven Kingdoms. He was chosen because he existed, he was male, and he could be controlled. Imagine being told your entire life that you're destined for greatness, only to realize you're actually just a convenient chess piece in someone else's game. That is not parental support. That is strategic exploitation with family dinners. Now here's where the betrayal really starts cutting deep. From the moment Aegon was crowned, Alicent made it crystal clear through every action, every decision, and every disappointed glance that she didn't trust him to actually rule. She surrounded him with advisors who reported to her. She undermined his decisions in small council meetings. She second-guessed every command, questioned every strategy, and treated him like a child playing dress-up in his father's clothes rather than the actual king of Westeros. Aegon wasn't leading the realm. He was performing the role of king, while his mother and grandfather ran everything behind the scenes. It is like being promoted to manager, but your previous boss still has the passwords to everything and keeps telling customers you are still learning. Except instead of customers, it is lords with armies, and instead of a bad Yelp review, people die in wars. The psychological damage of Alicent's approach to Aegon's kingship cannot be overstated. Every single thing Aegon does gets filtered through his mother's judgment, and spoiler alert, he never measures up. He wants to be bold and aggressive. Alicent says he is reckless. He wants to celebrate victories. Alicent reminds him of the costs. He wants to make independent decisions. Alicent has Otto or Kristen Cole explain why he is wrong. The woman spent years fighting to put her son on the throne, and then spent every day after his coronation proving that she didn't think he deserved to be there. That is like training for a marathon, finally running it, and having your own mother at the finish line, saying, well, you finished, but your form was terrible, and honestly, maybe running isn't for you. But wait, because the betrayal gets even more twisted when you look at how Alicent treats Aegon versus how she treats his siblings. Aemon gets praise for his skills despite being a violent psychopath with a god complex. Helena gets sympathy and protection despite not contributing anything to the war effort. Daeron gets spoken about with pride, even though he is off in Old Town doing whatever. But Aegon? Aegon gets criticism, disappointment, and constant reminders that he is not living up to expectations that were impossible to meet in the first place. Alicent's favoritism isn't even subtle. She looks at Aegon and sees Viserys' failed legacy. She looks at Aemond and sees the son she wishes had been born first. That is not complicated family dynamics. That is mom having a favorite and making sure everyone knows who it isn't. Here is the moment that crystallizes Aegon's sense of betrayal better than anything else. After the Battle of Rook's Rest, when Aegon is burned, broken, and barely alive, does Alicent rush to his side with maternal love and support? Does she defend him against the vultures circling his incapacitated body? No. She immediately pivots to damage control, allows Aemon to take over as Prince Regent, and basically sidelines her own son while he is fighting for his life. The message couldn't be clearer. Aegon was useful when they needed someone to crown. Now that he is damaged goods, They will just plug in the replacement sun and keep the machine running. Imagine waking up from a coma and finding out your family held a meeting about your job performance while you were unconscious and decided to give your position to your brother. That is not a family. That is a corporation with a really uncomfortable holiday party. The roots of this betrayal go way deeper than just recent events, though. Let us rewind to Aegon's childhood and adolescence, because this dysfunction has been brewing for decades. Alicent never prepared Aegon to be king. She prepared him to survive being king. There is a massive difference. One involves teaching leadership, wisdom, and statecraft. The other involves teaching paranoia, defensive strategies, and how to watch your back at family dinners. Aegon grew up knowing his mother was terrified of what might happen to him, but he never felt like she actually believed he could handle the throne she was fighting to give him. It is like being given a car by someone who constantly reminds you that you will probably crash it. Eventually, you start to wonder why they gave you the car in the first place, and you definitely don't feel grateful for the gift. And let us talk about the elephant in the room, which is that Alicent's relationship with Aegon is poisoned by her own regrets about her life. She sees Aegon and remembers being used by Otto, being married to Viserys, being trapped in a political nightmare she never asked for. Aegon is a living reminder of everything Alicent sacrificed and suffered, and it is hard to look at your son with pure love when he represents the gilded cage you have been locked in for 20-plus years. That is not Aegon's fault, but he pays the price for it every single day. Alicent projects her trauma onto her son and then gets frustrated when he doesn't magically overcome obstacles she couldn't overcome herself. It is generational trauma, served with a side of impossible expectations and a complete lack of emotional support. Here is where Aegon's sense of betrayal becomes almost tragic. He actually tried. Despite everything, despite knowing his mother didn't believe in him, despite being surrounded by people who saw high. So why does Aegon feel betrayed by his own mother? Because she made him king, but never believed he should be one. Because she fought for his crown, but not for his confidence. Because she protected his life, but destroyed his spirit. Because when he needed her most, she chose political expediency over maternal support. Because every time he looks at her, he sees disappointment reflected back, and that is a betrayal that burns deeper than any dragon fire ever could. Thanks for watching. Remember, in Westeros, sometimes the throne you fight for isn't worth the family you lose getting there. Let's talk about that stare down, though, because the cinematography of that scene is doing a lot of heavy lifting. When Rhaenys looks at Alicent, there's recognition there. Two women who have been used, manipulated, and constrained by the patriarchal power structures of Westeros. Alicent was married off to a man old enough to be her grandfather. Rhaenys was denied her birthright. They are both victims of the same system, even though they are on opposite sides of this conflict. In that moment, Rhaenys sees herself in Alicent, and maybe, just maybe, she is giving her a chance that she wishes someone had given her decades ago. But here's the kicker. Rhaenys' mercy is not actually mercy for Alicent and the Greens. It is a gift they do not deserve and will not appreciate, because the Greens do not stop. They do not take this near-death experience as a sign to negotiate or find peace. They double down. They prepare for war. They hunt down Rhaenyra's allies. So Rhaenys' moment of restraint gets thrown back in her face, and the war happens anyway. Which kind of proves that sometimes in Westeros, hesitation is just another word for failure. There's also something to be said